Oh, all right. What is up, mages? It is I, your wintry neighborhood winter spell. I welcome you back to another video. Today we have our first deck profile for the channel on a Pokemon deck, the one I actually use myself. Excellent. Our sound is working. Let's just mute that. There we go. Now I can see the comments. All right, so this is my personal Pokemon deck that I use myself. Spidops EX from the Scarlet and Violet base set. So this deck is honestly incredible. It is a grass type deck, grass being my favorite Pokemon type. Take a good drink. And it is a personal favorite of mine. So this deck is pretty awesome. It does not require a fantastic variety of Pokemon. We're going to move our camera up just a little bit. There we go. I want to actually get closer. Does not require a fantastic amount of Pokemon, but it's a great deck. So we're going to start out. The basic thing for the Pokemon you're going to be using, you're going to need Tarantula. Personally, I run 4 of him and 4 of Spidops. Because he is the main point of the deck and you want to be able to get off his ability. It doesn't really matter which Tarantula you run. Personally, I like this one because it's the special art that, does go together. The Spidops, of course, is the main thing of the deck. So Spidops EX, pretty damn good HP right there at 260. One of the things I like about this deck is the fact that the boss monster is a stage 1, so he is easier to get out. You don't have to go through multiple stages of evolution, just a 1. And that's a theme that you will definitely see in this deck. So the main thing of this deck is his ability is Trap Territory. And like I said, this ability does stack. So Trap Territory adds another, adds another retreat cost onto your opponent's active Pokemon, which combos with Wire Hang. So this attack does 30 more damage for each retreat cost in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So base damage, it's going to be doing at least 120 damage, even if they don't have any retreat cost. Like I said, this ability does stack. So if I have all 4 of my Spidops on the field, that's an extra 4 retreat cost right there. And even against, say, Lost Box, where a lot of those Pokemon are going to have no retreat costs, low retreat costs, or against Fusion Strike Mew, you're still hitting for good damage. So like I said, you're using a lot of Spidops. With the new set that just came out, Paldea Evolved. Oop, that is not the Pokemon I need right now. A second boss monster has been added to the deck, my personal opinion, in the form of Fortress EX. So Fortress is a Pokemon that I'm glad to see is getting a little love at this point. Originally coming out in Gen 2, Fortress was a Bug Steel type Pokemon, evolving from my boy Pineco here, the Bagworm Pokemon, even though that is obviously a Pinecone. So it also doesn't matter which Pineco you use. There's a couple of them right now that are legal. I like this one because it has the same attack as Fortress. So a good 270 HP with a Terra ability, which some of these Pokemon EX do have if they're the Terastallized versions. So as long as this Pokemon is on the bench, it cannot be damaged, like things like Earthquake or attacks like that. They'll deal damage to the bench. This is the full art version. Love this version. I mean, the actual one looks cool too, and I'll show that to you. There's my other Spidops as well. So pull out that's what the actual special version looks like. Still looks really good. So I run 3 Fortress EX in the deck. His attack is Guard Press. Like Spidops, it only uses 2 energy, which I absolutely love. I love low energy attacks because I can do a lot of cool stuff with that. So Guard Press will do 120 damage. And the next turn, this Pokemon will take 30 less damage. Now, that's a really cool thing because a lot of attacks, they end up being effects get put up against the opponent's active Pokemon instead of your own Pokemon. Since Fortress is the target, Doesn't matter who they switch out, you still get the ability. But the main reason you are running Fortress EX is the Exploding Energy ability. Now, this ability has the potential to be game-ending, and actually has in my experience. So I've been running the Fortress EX for a couple of tournaments now. Because like I said, this is my actual tournament deck. This is the Pokemon deck that I use. So once per turn, you can search your deck for up to 5 basic energy grass cards and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. Then shuffle your deck. Of course, if you do this, Fortress is knocked out, which means your opponent does get 2 prize cards since it's a Fortress EX. Now, you might be thinking, well, why would I sacrifice those prize cards? Well, like I said, you have the potential to end the game. Because you're running this in a Spidops deck, Spidops only requires 2 energy. So if you're searching out the 5 energy, let's say you have 3 Spidops on the field, or 2 Spidops and another Fortress. You can easily set up 3 Pokemon ready to fight right there, just from this one move, for the price of the 2 prize cards. I think that's worth it. I really only suggest using this ability once per game, as you do not want to give your opponent 4 prize cards just for free. However, if you need to hit it twice, do it. Because, each game is different. You got to do what you need to do. But I have done this. There was a game I had. They did not have any Pokemon on the bench. I had Spidops on my bench, and I'm like, oh. So I used Exploding Energy to attach the energy to Spidops and was able to go for a game because, as we call it, the donk, because he did not have anything on his bench. So I put that over there. Now, the third Pokemon you're going to run, which is not a boss monster, but it's mostly there for utility, is you're running Arboliva from the Scarlet and Violet base set. Now, this is the only non-EX attacker in the deck, but its ability makes it worth it. Its ability is Enriching Oil. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may heal all damage from one of your Pokemon. So this will immediately get one of your Spidops back in the game, one of your Fortress back in the game, and this will be all damage. You could have quite literally 10 HP left on that Pokemon, and Arboliva will just clear all of that out. And of course, to use it, you will need to run Smoliv and Dolliv as well. Now, this is the only Stage 2 in the deck, and it can be used to attack, because its attack is Solar Beam, 3 energy, 150 beater. Honestly, that's great. That 150 can clear a lot of things on the board, especially if you have a boss's orders or an escape rope. But mostly, Arboliva is not there to attack. Arboliva is mostly there for its ability. Although technically, Dolliv can also hold the field if necessary with its Apply Oil attack. During the opponent's next turn, if the defending Pokemon tries to attack, your opponent flips a coin. If tails, that attack does not happen. Now, that can be very situational since it says defending Pokemon, not your opponent's active Pokemon. So that by that reading, that tells us it's the Pokemon it attacked, which is a bit of a shame because then you can't hold it onto another Pokemon, but you do what you got to do. All right, I see Kiva has messaged the chat. Hello, Kiva. Really glad to see you. Hope you're going to enjoy this profile. So next, something that just came out in Paldea Evolved, Practice Studio. This is the only stadium that I really would run in this deck. Practice Studio is honestly incredible. The attacks of Stage 1 Pokemon, both yours and your opponent, do 10 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. Now, the reason this card is in this deck, I have 1 in this deck. I would run 2, but right now I've just got 1. Spidops and Tarantula are both Stage 1 Pokemon. And in Pokemon, 10 damage could make or break you, quite honestly. So this is a fantastic card to run because it does work. Now, one of the most important trainer cards you are going to run in this deck is Level Ball. Now, here's the reason why. because most of the Pokemon you need to search out are going to be 90 HP or less. So Level Ball has you search for your deck for a Pokemon of 90 HP or less, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Now, here's what you're searching out for that. That gets you your Tarantula. That gets you your Pineco. That gets you your Smoliv. That gets you your Dolliv. 2 Dolliv in the deck, 2 Smoliv, 3 Pineco, 4 Tarantula. So that will allow you to search for 4, 7, 9, 11. Lets you search for 11 Pokemon out of the deck. It's too good not to use. That's the thing. Now, most of the retreat costs are lower in this deck, so switching out is not as necessary, especially with the Arboliva, but I do suggest running at least one switch. I've got the one from XY Evolutions right here. Absolutely love it. And, of course, I do run a couple of energy retrievals, putting 2 basic energy cards from your discard in the hand. This is also XY, what's it called? Evolutions. Absolutely love the set because it uses the art from the old cards. And as you guys know, you might not know, I have been into Pokemon since the early 2000s because I was a bit young. I was there for only the second half of the 90s. So they didn't let me do Pokemon yet. My first Pokemon game being Pokemon Pinball when I think I was in kindergarten. Because my dad found a Game Boy Color in a rental car. And then, of course, I played Pokemon Silver. So when it comes to... I don't use any tool cards in this deck, but I might consider a Vitality Band. So when it comes to supporter cards, which are incredibly important, I run quite a few. Which, of course, makes a certain item card incredibly important. Pal Pad. I run 2 Pal Pads, shuffle up to 2 supporter cards from your discard pile into your deck. That's important. You're doing a lot of work with those supporter cards, so running at least 2 Pal Pads is a must. And trust me, I'm doing work. Now, my high HP Pokemon do hold the field, so they don't need to move around as much. I don't need to do as much with them, except really just attach energy and attack. But that's okay. Now, a really important supporter card you're going to play in this deck is I run 2 Gardenia's Vigor. Now, this card is incredibly important because every Pokemon in this deck is a Grass-type Pokemon. So it lets you draw 2 cards, and if you drew cards this way, attach up to 2 energy cards from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. And you have to remember, the most important attacks in this deck cost only 2 energy. So that'd be Wire Hang and Guard Press. So this will completely set up one of your benched Pokemon, whether you got Fortress on the bench or Spidops on the bench. This makes them ready to go in one fell swoop. And even if you're relying on Arboliva, her attack costs 3, so attach the 2, then attach 1 for turn, and you pretty much just have it. Now, you're not going to be fainting as much, honestly, because of the high HP and the healing, but still running 1 Raihan is rather important, because you can play this the turn after your opponent has knocked out your Pokemon. Attach a basic energy card from the discard to one of your Pokemon, and then search your deck for any 1 card. So honestly, always run a Raihan. Now, something you can use to combo off of Fortress is running a Roxanne. So you can only use this if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. And you can use... Honestly, you can use the Fortress if they're sitting at like 5 cards. You can use the Fortress to knock them down to 3 prize cards and then use Roxanne right there. Each player has to shuffle their hands in their deck, then you draw 6 cards, your opponent draws 2. So this can completely reset the game. You're starting out with essentially a fresh hand, and they got to shuffle in whatever they had and only draw 2. So they're starting their turn with a very big disadvantage. So like I said, that's a good combo you can do. This is my favorite art for Roxanne, and she is one of my favorite Gen 3 gym leaders because she's just awesome. Now, of course, any deck in this format, we are obviously running Boss's Orders. I run a couple of Boss's Orders because I can get it back with Pal Pad, so I only run 2. one of the Giovanni, one of the Cyrus. Although I would really love the full arts for these. Anyone that knows me when it comes to Pokemon, I love Pokemon full art cards, and I strive to have as many of them as possible in my deck, because I think Pokemon is some of the best full art cards of pretty much any TCG, and I'm absolutely obsessed with just getting as many full arts as possible. So running the boss's orders, because of course boss's orders lets you force one of your opponent's Pokemon on the bench to the active position. Now boss's orders is incredible. That can be a game-ending move right there, because let's say you are sitting at 5 prize cards and your opponent's got something big and tough you cannot knock out. Use the boss's orders, force their like basic Pokemon with 80 HP up to the front, and they're like, oh no, and just knock it out right there. Now a card that just came out in Paldea Evolved is Iono. This is a fantastic card to use. I run one of them myself. So each player has to shuffle their hand and put it on the bottom of the deck. Notice it says not shuffle into the deck, shuffle the hand, put it on the bottom. So that can be pretty incredible if you know that your opponent has just searched out a card they really need. So then we draw cards equal to our remaining prize cards. This can also be pretty incredible late game if you are struggling and you do not have a lot of prize cards. You know, use this to lower your opponent's hand while being able to refresh your own. So kind of like a lower rent Roxanne. It's not bad. Something that also came out in Scarlet and Violet base set, an incredibly important card for this deck, Miriam. One of the best cards to come out of Scarlet and Violet thus far, I think. So shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from your discard pile back into your deck, and if you shuffled any in this way, draw 3. So this is a great draw 3 card. This lets you refresh. This will let you can even combo if you don't really need a lot of things in your graveyard, in your deck. Just shuffle 1 back in, get that free draw 3. It's fantastic. I run a couple of these. Miriam does work. Now, obviously, a lot of decks run at least one Professor's Research. I definitely suggest running one as well. I got my boy Oak here. So discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Now, the amazing thing about this card is you don't actually need to have a hand to be able to use this card. So there are cards that say minimum of 1, things like that. That means you'd have to at least discard 1. This card just says discard your hand, draw 7 cards. If you do not have any cards in your hand, you just get a free draw 7. So this can really help you out in a pinch. Like I said, I always suggest running at least one Professor's Research in any deck. Now, a similar card that can be risky but also can completely change the game for you. I like to run 1 copy of Katie. So one of just the coolest design, I think, for gym leaders to come out of Scarlet and Violet, because I love her look. She seems very sweet, and I love pastries, and I love desserts, and she is a pastry chef. So huge points in my book. And she also uses bug types, and I really appreciate the bug type. So shuffle your hand in your deck, and then you draw 8 cards. That's incredible. Drawing 8 cards. Now, your turn does end as soon as you play this card and then do your draw. However, you might be thinking, oh, that's terrible. Why would I want to end my turn? Well, you might not be able to attack anyway. If you're stuck in a position where you can't attack, or that you know attacking is a bad idea, or you're just not set up to do anything, this is kind of a Hail Mary card to say, okay, I need a fresh outlook on life. And Katie can give it to you. I have drawn a God Hand after using Katie. She is an incredible card to use. So Level Ball is your big searcher for most part. However, to get your Spidops and get your Fortress, you're going to run a couple of Jacques. So this lets you search your deck for up to 2 evolution Pokemon, reveal them and put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this will get you Spidops, this will get you Arboliva, this will get you Fortress. It also can get you Dolive. That's something else you can think about. I've also used this with a Vivillon play. I was using Vivillon and I used a Jacques to search out Silcoon and Vivian, and using their adaptive evolution abilities, I was able to get to stage 2 in one turn, because adaptive evolution will let you evolve these cards the turn they're played. And of course, you slap down 1 energy for Miracle Powder. You know, it's a good early game beater, and has actually won me several games because, oh god, because somehow I was paralyzing a guy over and over again. So Jacques is important. It can search out most of your Pokemon as well. So between the 3 level ball and the 2 Jacques, you are doing really good on searchers. And the last really important supporter card you want to run, I always say, at least in this format, run at least 1 Shauna. This card is fantastic. So it's a shuffle and draw 5. 5 cards is a very good hand size. You can get a lot of things going off. And it does not end the turn like Katie. So you can just like get your hand down, play the Shauna, shuffle and go, get a whole fresh new hand. I have done this and been able to double the extent of my turn and just go off. So all in all, this deck is really good. I have enjoyed playing it. I think Spidops is going to hold its place in the meta, at least in the mid to low high ranges. Like, I'm not saying this is a game-changing deck. It is not a game-changing deck. People can shut it down. And I will say, personally, in my locals, I usually end up going 2-2, because I'm about in the mid-range of the players there. We got some really good players at our locals for both Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, we've got people that go to regionals and national tournaments, which is very surprising considering the small size of our town. But Spidops is a deck that is going to hold its value. I personally see Spidops getting use long ways through. I see it getting use all the way through the Scarlet and Violet format. Whatever the next game is going to be, I honestly see Spidops being used until it's rotated out. I feel like it's a bit of a rogue deck. It's not directly in the meta, but it has the potential to counter the meta because it's got a good come from behind thing. The wire hang is an incredible attack. I've hit for 210 plus on a regular basis, to the point where there are people in my locals who are like, it's that damn spider again, and will do everything they can to kill my Spidops. I actually have a guy there at locals that has put in hate cards to his deck just to get rid of my Spidops. Like, to specifically counter me. And that's just pretty awesome. So like I said, all in all, this is a great deck. I really love it. It is probably one of the favorite Pokemon decks that I've ever played. Even bringing me back all the way to my Luxray break deck. Oh, thank you, Kiva. You're actually going to get some more deck streams. I really like doing deck profiles. Originally, in my original channel as Captain Bravo, it was a short-lived channel. It was not a well-loved channel. Pretty much all I did was deck profiles. I was not able to stream because at the time my only platform would have been the Wii. Yeah, I had a channel that died when I was like 18, 19 in college. It did not go well. I did not know how to make videos then. I did not have the voice down. There were definitely people who have told me they would rather eat diarrhea every morning for breakfast than watch my videos. But thankfully that appears to have changed. We are sitting at 69 subscribers now. So I am not a success per se, but I'm definitely starting to get there. Again, the goal is by the end of the year to be hitting 100 subscribers. I'm really hoping we can do it. I'm working really hard to make it happen. And I'm trying to expand the type of videos we have in this channel. Still working on Edison stuff. Thinking about new ways to work for that. You are actually going to get a profile for my Edison deck You know what? I can even do that today. That's not really a problem. But I do enjoy deck profile videos. I've always enjoyed doing them because I love card games and I really love showing them off. And when I find a deck I really like, I love showing people. Which I can also show you guys. I actually got a really cool deck box for this deck. See right here. It's got a good snap. And it has a little compartment for my damage dice. Because people who play Pokemon, you know that 6-sided dice, you're going to need that in place of the coins because the coins are terrible. And you already know that we have our damage dice that we use to keep track of Pokemon health. So that fits just at the bottom of it. And honestly, I love it. I found it for $8 on Amazon. It's an incredibly tough case. I really like it. It has made the deck feel more fun. It's going to save space in my bag. I think it's meant for like commander decks. So it can fit a whole bunch of cards, but my deck fits pretty comfortably in there. I love it. I love the dice holder the most. That's just awesome. And yeah, no, Kiva, it was a weird channel. I did profiles for my buddy fight decks, and there would be this guy that would always say, "Hey, I want that deck," and he'd be trying to get my deck off me. It was so weird, and I hated it, but we just kind of dealt with it. And yeah, no, we had some weird people. All in all, it was great fun, and man, that soda's good. But I'm glad to be getting back into deck profiles. I've actually got my Edison deck here. You know what? After I take a break after this video, I will gladly do a deck profile for my Edison deck that I have completed. There's a couple of cards I have coming for it, and I will mention those cards. But I'll show you the current build. So yeah, I really enjoy doing deck profiles. Yeah, I've done a couple of Edison tournaments at this point. It's really fun, and I'll gladly talk about it and talk about some of that Edison meta. Because the Edison meta was interesting. And it's been difficult getting back into it because it is such a different mindset than modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's a bit of a learning curve. But for now, we are going to take a break. I'll let this video process, and I'll be back in a few minutes with my Edison deck profile. And I hope you guys are going to really enjoy it. Like I said, only going to be a few minutes, and I'll be right back with that. But for now, hopefully you enjoyed the Spidops deck. It's the only Pokemon deck I have. I really only run one of them. Pokemon is not like a main game that I play. It's one that I play more casually. But I built one deck, and I tried to make it as cool as possible because it can be expensive and difficult to do. It seems a lot easier to collect Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. But for now, this has been your Wintry Neighborhood Winter Spell, reminding you to stay frosty. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next video.